Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another episode of Tech Backstage. I am joined today by Rich Kahn from Anura. I said that right? Right? I
Correct.
forgot to even ask. Cool. Good
All
stuff,
good.
man. Thanks for being on the show today. I'm excited to dive into this topic. Something that I wasn't even really aware existed, but something I am all of a sudden very concerned about myself, actually. So, um, before we dive into the topic, I'd love to just talk a little bit briefly about your background and how you came to co-found Anura with your wife.
Sure. Well, the short version, almost 20 years ago, we started a digital marketing firm online. And early on, around 2004, 2005, we were having some issues with, I knew to be fraud. I've been in the space since 93. So I recognized it was fraud. I'm like, you know what? We're building a marketing firm. Let's go out, license an ad fraud technology, bolt it on, and call it a day. Well, in 2005, there weren't any ad fraud solutions out in the marketplace at all. So as a developer, I built my own. And it worked great until it didn't. And you had to keep evolving the system because fraud keeps evolving. And 10 years later, I looked up and realized, wow, there's a market for this. And we did some testing with our technology versus other technology to realize we brought something unique to the marketplace. And in 2017, we launched Anura.
Awesome. That's incredible. And I love how it's such a I think it's the greatest founder story, right? It's like the natural evolution out of something else that you were doing. You see a problem that needs to be solved. I love the fact that you're a technical founder, by the way. That's awesome. But you see a problem in the market. You're like, well, this needs to be addressed, and just like I think a lot of people, you assume, oh, we need to bolt on an ad fraud technology, and like, oh, those don't exist. I guess I'll just go out and build one. So I just love the kind of natural evolution out of having a marketing agency and then that evolving into actually what is now a technical product, which
Yeah,
is, I guess that's the developer's natural evolution to solving problems, right? Well,
that's our
nothing
job.
exists. I guess I'm just going to fix it. All right. That's awesome. So from there, I'd love to talk just briefly about ad fraud, right? Because I think, like we were talking about backstage, especially even around everything in the political landscape right now and in the elections, I think we're all very aware that bots exist. We're all aware that, there are, people in huts on other sides of the world trying to hack elections and like get your credit card information. So I think we're all generally aware that that stuff exists, right? I don't think it's some sort of like far-fetched fantasy anymore. I think before, the previous election cycles, I think we all knew that like there was probably some intermingling in like the elections and things like that, but I think it was always like one of those things that was just too far off in the distance to like really take seriously. And then all of a sudden you find out there are troll farms on the other side of the world, and it kind of blows your mind, right? But like these things exist. The thing that I wasn't aware about was that I wasn't aware that there could be like I wasn't aware that these things were directed at paid digital advertising. Um, can we just talk a little bit about like what ad fraud is and I guess how it affects businesses?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of ways. Obviously, we talked about this a little bit before, but you know, when you talk about ad fraud, if I say the word bots, most people know what a bot is, right? And there are good bots and bad bots. You got the good bots like Google bot and Bing bot. They're trying to search your site for SEO, and the better you do in SEO, the more traffic you get. But I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the bad bots, the ones that will click on your ad, the ones that'll view an impression, the ones that'll fill out a form, those or ones that'll actually put stuff into a shopping cart and use stolen credit cards to make purchases. So they get from very, very basic to very, very advanced. And the sole purpose of the person running that, we call them a fraudster, either they're committing it through one of three basic vehicles. Either they're using bots, using malware that's installed on your machine, or they're using human fraud farms that they can get around the globe that they can license for like $9 an hour to
Wow.
commit the fraud, because again, it's a real person behind the keyboard, so it makes it more difficult to catch. And
Yeah.
their sole purpose is to make money directly or indirectly off those activities.
And so just I feel like maybe I understand how they're making money, but like Can you talk a little bit how these fraudsters make money off advertising fraud?
Sure. And let's face it, there's a lot of channels of marketing, right? I
Yeah.
think there's 8 basic channels of digital marketing. So everything from, programmatic ads, clicks, lead generation, e-commerce transactions, all kinds of different things. Let's pick lead generation just because I just got off the phone with a lead generation client and we're talking about the same topic. So a lot of these lead generation companies, they don't want to pay for the impression because they feel like, bots can get in the way of that. And they don't want to pay for the click because clicks can be fabricated. But for somebody to come and fill out a form to say, hey, I want to save money on car insurance, they feel that's a generally good conversion. So what a human fraud farm would do, or a bot, they'll come along to this form, they'll put in stolen information. So let's say they put Eddie's information in there. They've got your email address, your phone number, any other information that they need. They submit the form. Now the company who gets the form says, okay, somebody just filled out a form. They usually run a data check to make sure that the email address and the phone number match the person's name, so it looks legit. And then within seconds, it's funneled over to a call center to call up. So basically now somebody starts calling you, and you didn't fill out this form to save money on your car insurance. Right. So there's 4 major impacts that happen in a situation like that. The first thing is that lead's never going to convert because you didn't fill out the form, right? The second thing, let's say it's a big brand and they call enough people like this, they're going to run into a brand reputation issue. People are more worried about how you got their information than anything else. Mm-hmm. The next thing is, if you didn't fill out the form and your phone starts ringing right now with a number you don't recognize, most people don't answer it. Right. Because they're robocalls, right? So it takes longer to reach somebody who's not expecting your call. Now, if you filled out the form yourself, hit submit, and a couple seconds later your phone's ringing, you kind of expect that. But again, it takes longer to reach. So now they're spending more money on call center resources. And finally, one of the biggest things that's happening is if somebody fills out a form and they call you and you didn't give them express permission to call them, you're breaking TCPA compliance. Right. And it's the fastest growing class action lawsuit in this country.
Yeah. Yeah, so no, that's terrifying.
Big impacts on something that seems... Now, what happens is, go back to answer your original question, that fraudster, what happened? They got paid, let's say, $5 or $10 or more, depending on the vertical, to fill out that form. Mm-hmm. And as long as it passes the basic tests, they get paid. Right. They don't connect all the dots all the way through to this, was this the real person, not real person. Because all that stuff doesn't come back. The marketing data doesn't come back to the... I should say the call center data doesn't really get connected back to the marketing side, and it's too late. The fraudster's been paid, the call's been made, the damage has been done.
Yeah, and so this is very much like, we're talking about lead gen specifically, but I assume it's probably the same for, a lot of like advertising, right? Like with AdSense and stuff. So I would imagine it's something along the lines of like, let's say I have, an affiliate marketing website and I run, AdSense on my site. The way that I get paid is that those, my site, I have 700,000 users a month coming to my site. A certain percentage of them are going to click on AdSense ads, and then that's going to actually, take me to that advertiser's website, right? So I would assume in this case, we're specifically talking about these fraud farms creating websites that appear legitimate and probably even have some content on them, and then they actually embed the AdSense into the website, but then they end up sending bots to the websites to click on those ads, and then they're getting paid via their AdSense account for the clicks to the ads. Does that sound about right?
That's perfect. I mean, that's exactly what's happening. So think of it this way: think of a let's call it an affiliate, right? They have that affiliate website. They're driving a lot of traffic organically to the site, or however they're driving the traffic. Put the Google AdSense on there. It gets a certain percentage of clicks. They're making money. Then they come across software, or they decide to build software, manufacture software, or buy traffic from, let's say, other affiliates, right? And those affiliates are driving traffic a lot less money than what they're getting paid to drive traffic, so they can make a profit and make that spread. So what ends up happening is they're driving all this traffic, and all of a sudden now fraud starts to creep in because they're buying cheaper and cheaper traffic. And that traffic is manufactured traffic. It's not real traffic. Right. So they can get the cost down and make the margin higher. But it gets to a point when Google starts picking up on it, they start giving you a haircut on your
Yeah.
payment, or worse yet, they'll ban your account.
Hmm.
I'll give you an example. We have a couple of clients that they're running AdSense sites. They are good guys, from what I can tell. Right? They licensed our software. They're trying to get the fraud out, but the places where they buy traffic from have fraud.
Hmm.
And unbeknownst to them, it's coming in. They don't want it. So now they're using a technology like ours to block it so it doesn't interfere with Google and Google doesn't shut their account down.
Right. Yeah, because that's a showstopper right there if Google shuts your account down. And what's interesting about this is I know some people that work really hard. I actually know a couple companies that work really hard in this space for the on the affiliate side, right? And the amount of resources they put into building a legitimate site with traffic, it's massive. I mean, you're talking on, the scale of hundreds of people just to make sure that they have, real authentic content, that it's real people clicking on the links, and that, even more, that the people that are coming to the site are benefiting from them connecting them to a vendor. And so, there's massive amounts of resources that go into these companies. And um it's tough because these fraudsters, they're doing it on the cheap, they're doing it down and dirty, they're just, they're out there just trying to get it done as I guess as low cost as possible, right? But they're, it's hard because it's not a level playing field, right? It's like you're throwing, hundreds of people of resources at trying to create an authentic site, and these guys are just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do it on, with one guy is just going to run a for loop, and like I said, some hut on the other side of the world, and that's so. Anyways, I think it's tough to compete with them, right? And then their strategies are always changing too, right? So I
Well,
guess that. Well, go ahead. Sorry if
yeah,
you're
I
going to
was gonna
say
say, let me
something.
give you an example. Let's stick with this AdSense for a second, right? I'll show you how a fraud farm is being used. So, right now, anywhere around the globe, you can license human fraud farms for about $9 an hour, and they range depending on the region, but it's about $9 an
Hmm.
hour. So, let's say I had a Google AdSense site, and I wanted to drive traffic. I can pay that person to come to my site, poke around, so it doesn't trip any bot detection software, right? Find the Google AdSense and click on the Google AdSense. Now, Google AdSense will pay an average of, depending on the vertical, 50 cents to $2 a click, somewhere in that range. Um, how many clicks do you think a human can do in an hour?
Thousands.
Let's keep it simple. Let's call it
Okay.
100.
Okay.
Right? Let's say they click on an ad every, every whatchamacallit, twice a minute, every 30 seconds. Right? So that's 100 requests. And let's say they're averaging $1 a click. That's $100 they made in that hour.
Hmm.
Cost them $9.
Right.
Now imagine if they licensed that person full time, or they licensed a team of people, and those people, those human fraud firms, already have the software to spoof their connection, spoof their IP address of where it's coming from, so it's coming from the right regions, and they have all that tools right. I mean, you don't have to be a technical wizard to pay $9 an hour and build a
Right.
team of fraudsters that are committing fraud, making you a whole lot of money. So that becomes that big issue. That's like I said, this happens in programmatic. This happens with clicks, search, social, every marketing channel I've come across. I even wrote an article for Forbes how organic traffic can get you sued.
Incredible. Yeah, I had no idea. It's just it's like it's a rampant problem right now, right?
Yeah.
Like we were talking, I think we were just talking about this backstage, but even heading over towards, talking about Twitter, for example, and the recent acquisition with Mr. Musk. I think what was the parameter? Like he wanted to buy it if it was less than 5% bots verified. And I mean, I think there was a lot of speculation, and there's a lot of people that I think that it's over 5%, but I mean, you sound like you're pretty sure on that number, and you guys know how to find out.
Well, we approached Musk and the lawyers and tried to say, hey, let's prove to you one way or the other, based on our analytics, how much fraud is really there. Um, Twitter makes a lot of its money from its advertising network, like most of the big boys do. They're all making money through advertising. And we've had several more than several dozens, let's call it, of clients that have come to us buying on the Twitter advertising network, and the traffic that we scan, because I don't want to say this to everybody, but the traffic that we scan was significantly higher than 5% fraud.
Incredible.
So it's there. You just got
Yeah.
to look for it.
Yeah. And then, so I guess that's a great pivot point. You just got to look for it. So I guess first and foremost, what are you looking for when you're scanning for this stuff?
I'll give you a good example. It's an old school technique, but this is where we're not giving up secret sauce, right?
Right.
When somebody lands on a page that we protect, we're collecting over 800 data points on the user's environment. We're looking at hardware, software, plugins, anything and everything that we can grab from that environment. The only PII, personal identifying information that we grab, is an IP address, and it's only defined as that is in the GDPR scenario, which I kind of disagree with, but that's a whole nother topic. So basically, we're not grabbing like a person's name, email address. We don't care about that. When somebody lands on a page, within about a second, we're able to grab everything we need and come back with a definitive answer if that person's real or fake. So, for example, let's say somebody lands on your landing page, comes with an iPhone. They're looking at your data. They come from, Manhattan. Everything looks good. We scan them and find out they don't have a touchscreen.
Oh, interesting.
That's a problem.
Yeah, that would be a red flag.
iPhone should have a touchscreen.
Yeah.
But not all of them do. So they fail the test. Now, with our system, we don't want to just, because they fail one test, mark them as fraud. So we look at a series and a battery of tests, because for us, we need to be 100% confident that it's not a real user before we tell our client that it's a bad user.
Yeah. No, absolutely, because you don't want to be turning away actual traffic.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. I guess a little bit more high level, before, because I do want to drill down a little bit more into what you guys do at Anura, and I think we just got a little bit of a preview of that. But for any regular guy off the street, like I'll take myself for example, running a consulting company, have a marketing department, but small. So a lot of what we're doing is manual in-house advertising, across Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, what have you. But like, what are some of the things high level that somebody like myself could do to, prevent this sort of ad fraud that you guys are seeing?
Sure. So these tests I'll give you one. We'll stick with the lead generation because we were just on that before. So I'll stick with one like that. There's something called a honeypot, and it's pretty simple to do. If you understand the technical aspect of a form's got a bunch of different elements or inputs, right? So first name, email address, and then you can put something in there called a hidden input field. Let's call it birth date or birth year, right? So the visitor who's actually on the site is not going to see that input field. They're going to see first name, email address, phone number, submit, right? That's all they see. But a bot, again, not the advanced bots, but a good chunk of bots will start inputting first name, email address, phone number, birth year, and hit submit. So now when you get a form submission coming through and that honeypot was filled out, it was a bot.
Right.
That's a basic test. We've used it for decades. But at the end of the day, it still catches, that type of test will still catch a fair number of bots filling out forms.
Yeah, I think that's incredible that I love that. Actually, personally, I love using honeypots on our forms as well. But I think that, you're right, because it's not something that's actually looking at a computer screen and just filling out the information that is right there, right? It's looking at the HTML structure of the form, and it's it's saying, oh, hey, I need a birth year right here, but it's not recognizing that form's not visible on the website because it's probably running in a headless environment, so it has no idea what actually displayed on the screen. So, okay, so from there, now we're talking about, okay, we got honeypots and there's some basic things that you can do as a company that's advertising and trying to prevent fraud. I guess, like, maybe let's shift gears really quick and start talking a little bit more about Anura and how, I think you dove into it a little bit high level, but I guess, like, what's kind of the next step with you guys beyond just the honeypot? And you guys are scanning 800 800, you said 800 data points.
Over 800 data points. Yeah.
Wow. So, and again, without going into the secret sauce, maybe walk us through a little bit, especially, so you talked, I think we were also talking about when somebody lands on a landing page, right? But what about, are you guys able to help with things like lead generation? And, how does that differ from, somebody just landing on a page and clicking on, an advertisement or filling out a form?
Well, for us, it's the same thing. What we're trying to do is validate the person behind the keyboard is real.
Hmm.
So if we identify the person as 100% confident that it's not a real user, that's something that you want to tag your form with, prevent them from filling out the form, not let them click on an AdSense link. You have the data in real time, so now you have to act on it.
Hmm.
And our job is to help our clients, and every client's a little different. Some people are doing lead gen, some people are doing e-commerce. We've got clients that are doing logins, where basically they don't want, because what they'll have bots log into their system and game their system all the way through. And, a lot of these are, let's say, ad supported. So the user or the bot is now being exposed to all this banner advertising, and those banner advertisements are now being seen by a bot. So the end client's not getting any value out of it, and that becomes a problem for our client. So we want to protect any asset that needs to be protected, has to be done in a way that's different and unique for each client. So our goal is to help them identify where the fraud is, where it's coming from, and then come up with a game plan on how to deal with that so that they can effectively eliminate it in real time, versus looking at all the data after the fact, after the damage is done, the call's been made, and you realize all this wasted money and time. So we try to do that in advance, make sure it gets done up front.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a whole lot of sense because, actually, we just had a guest on the show not too long ago. I forget which episode we were talking about this, but the real-time data analytics is the differentiator because you're able to make decisions in real time, as opposed to if you're talking about analyzing the data after the fact. That's kind of, I mean, cool, you can do a retro and maybe like try and prevent it in the future, but realistically speaking, you already spent that money on something that wasn't real. And
Mm-hmm.
so what you guys are trying to do is you're trying to actually analyze it right now and then make that decision on the spot, because that's really where you got to catch it. Do
Yeah,
you
and
have any? Go,
I was
go,
going
go
to say
ahead. Sorry.
there's two ways of doing it. Let's say a company, on average, we catch 25% of all marketing dollars to be fraudulent, which is huge.
Wow.
It's 25%. Now it depends on verticals. Some verticals have more fraud than others. Like we talked about affiliates. Affiliates have some of the highest level of fraud, 45% fraud on average. Programmatic advertising, 45 to 50% on average. It's one of the highest, and that's one of the biggest channels of marketing. So understanding where the fraud comes from. If I come into a site and I say, okay, you got 25% fraud and you're going to use us in real time, immediately going to shut down 25% of your traffic, 25% of your revenue,
Mhm.
and that will create problems for some companies.
Yeah, immediately. Right.
So the goal is to first analyze the data, make sure that they agree with our findings, and then use that data to start reducing the fraud. And the way you do that is you identify the sources of traffic, the campaigns and all that stuff that are generating good quality visitors, and you spend more money there. The stuff that has bad quality visitors, reduce or eliminate. And by doing that, you start reducing your fraud overall. And then once you get to a point where you feel confident with the system, everything's working great, flip on a switch, go real time, and now you digitally slice out every bad visitor coming to your assets.
Wow. And just really quick, I want to kind of go back and touch on this data point. So 25% of advertising dollars spent is fraudulent.
I kind of
What's
just
that?
dropped that on you.
Yeah, yeah. What's that equate to as far as like money? Like how much money is that on average per year?
All right. So this year, the global spend of digital marketing is expected to be north of $500 billion. First time that we're tipping over that number. And based on the reports that I read, based on our own analytics, we're seeing that ad fraud is going to steal north of $100 billion of that money.
Wow. That's incredible. That's a lot of I'm just thinking like Tinder swindler right now. Like, it's a lot of private jet rides that should be going towards actual advertising. Do you guys have any sort of, and it's okay if you're not, again, I'm not trying to put you on the spot on this. Do you guys have any sort of, data around, how effective stopping ad fraud is? Oh,
Sorry about that.
it's all good.
Thought
Do
I had
you
everything
guys?
off.
Yeah, I thought so, dude. I do that all the time. Like my phone will start buzzing and my headphones start making the noise. Anyways, do you guys have any sort of analytics around just how effective these ad fraud solutions are? Anything that talks to like how much you're able to prevent and
Sure.
potentially how much you're able to save a customer?
Yeah. Um, it depends on the customer, depends on the channels that they're spending on, depends on what they're doing. Because, like I said, one way of identifying fraud is following the trail all the way down to the final endpoint, and then taking that information and all that data and getting it back to the buying side or the media side, and working together. And most companies do not have the capabilities of doing that, but that helps reduce the overall, budget of fraud. So like I said, on average, when I bring on a new prospect and we're working with them, typically it's 25%. So in that, we want to come up with, a ballpark. If it's 25% that we're catching and we block the 25%. So let's say they went and said, okay, I'm going to flip the switch and go live and block the 25%. They're going to see a 25%, well, a greater than 25% increase in ROI, because you're knocking out that 25% fraud, but you're really not spending that money. You're taking that budget and still spending it on good people.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a calculation. I think it's over 30%. Like, we have a publicly traded company that does a lot of lead generation for their clients, and they've got major Fortune 500 companies. And they gave us a case study that we increased their client ROI 20 to 25% by flipping on the switch.
Incredible.
I mean, that's the
Wow.
kind of impact you're seeing. So if I dealt with a client today, they were more in the 5 to 10% range, but you're talking about millions of dollars a month being spent, and
Yeah.
5 or 10% of that being lost to fraud. For a few bucks, you can take that, identify it, reinvest it back into the good stuff, and see a lift in ROI.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost too to me, like if you think about it, it's almost like double, right? It's like it's almost a double-edged sword because you're talking about initially you're spending, let's say 25% in fraudulent in fraudulent leads, but then all of a sudden you reduce that 25% in fraudulent leads and then you redeploy it on new customers. So I 100% get it. It's like, the ROI for sure kind of lines up with what you guys are blocking out, but it's almost like a yeah, to me it feels kind of like double because you're able to reduce the fraudulent spending, but then also redeploy it on actual customers.
Yeah, I don't have my
Um,
math skills 100% on me right now, but if you think
yeah,
about it, in a typical campaign, only 75% of the budget is being used to produce the end result.
yep,
So now, if you were to increase that 75% by 25%, I guess it's about a third, right? You're going to
yep,
see a 33% increase in performance for the same
yep,
budget. And
yeah,
all
it's
we're doing is,
incredible.
is helping you to direct where that traffic's coming from, what traffic you're buying.
Yeah,
So it's like I always tell our clients, it's great because you're winning. If you're selling this traffic or managing it for another client, they're winning. We're winning because we've got a client. The only person losing is the fraudster, and
yep.
nobody cares about them but
Yeah,
themselves.
well, yeah. I was gonna say, I wouldn't say nobody, but yeah, I agree with you. Um, Kind of like final question here. We got about a minute or two left. How do you see the future of digital advertising? This is probably a loaded question, but like, how important do you see ad fraud prevention in the new age of digital marketing that's coming up? Cookieless environments, not being able to track as much user data. I mean, to me, it feels like it's going to be even more important in the future because we're going to have even less data points to go off of. And so it's going to be even more important that the dollars that you're spending are deployed effectively and not towards fraudulent spending. But kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I think if ad fraud is left untouched, it will kill the digital marketing space. Because again, if you go back a couple years ago, I want to say 2016, 17, I don't have the numbers in front of me again, but ad fraud at the time was like $2 or $3 billion a year. Sizable, but not where it is today.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, like 2019, I think it jumped up to like 8 billion or 15 billion or something like that. Then the next year was like 20 billion. Next year was 40 billion. And then this year went from last year in 2021, it was 40, I think it was 42 to 45 billion it was expected. And this year it's going to be over 100 billion. It's growing exponentially, and it's chewing up a bigger and a bigger percentage of the digital marketing spend. So your advertising dollars are worth less and less because of fraud. Untouched, it's going to eat up the space, because there's just so much fraud happening that where your campaign might have had 5% fraud in the past, and you can kind of absorb that. It's like, okay, I'm losing 5%. It's the cost of doing business. Now you're losing 20, 25%.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you start losing 30%, 40%? What number does it become not effective anymore?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a require. I mean, before it used to be a nice selling advantage. If you were a marketing agency managing clients, it would be a nice advantage that you have over your competition. Now it's pretty much a requirement. You need to have something in place. Like, that's one of the biggest questions I ask when I talk to a new marketing firm. Well, how do you stop fraud?
Yeah,
I want to know they're doing something about it.
Yeah, of course. No, that's a question I'm going to start asking people going forward tomorrow, because we're interviewing people. So it's good. No, but I think the other thing too, like you said, like, to me, even 5% fraud is unacceptable. But I can't even imagine getting up towards, I mean, 25 to me is ludicrous. I can't even imagine going over 30%. Like, like you said, your ROI just starts dropping off a cliff at that point. And then who actually wants to spend money on digital advertising? And I guess me, as an engineer myself, I am ever the skeptic of digital marketing. And to me, sorry to all the marketers that are listening in, but I'm going to say it. Digital marketing's kind of become like the scourge of the earth. You know what I mean? Like, I barely even go on LinkedIn anymore, because I just get, hundreds of messages for people trying to sell me services. And then it's turned into this kind of like battleground for like 0.01% conversion rates. And it's like, just all the, I think back to like Mad Men, the TV show, but like all the old school advertising, kind of went out the window, right? And now it's just down to like trying to, it's honestly almost like clickbait nowadays, right? It's like you're just trying to get that 0.01% into the top of your sales funnel so you can have some SDR just attack it. And anyways, I think that regardless, spending money on it, like I think it'll actually help the marketing landscape if we're able to get rid of the fraud, because at that point, maybe the advertising can return to a little bit more, I guess, a little bit more focused quality content. But that's, me being the skeptic and the pessimist.
Well, you brought up a good point. LinkedIn, right? You stopped going on LinkedIn. Why?
Yeah, because it's, people are just pinging me with spam every day.
Is it people?
That's a good point. I don't know.
No, it's not. People are using a software to automate that process. That's a bot. You don't think they're sitting out reaching out personally to you with a nice marketing message, and then after you connect, they respond back within an hour. It has another, hey, I want to sell you a product or service. That's all handled by software. There's tons of companies out there that do that. Those are bots.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Trust me, I've reached out to LinkedIn and said I can stop that.
And they're like, nope, don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Well, Rich, I appreciate it. Love talking about ad fraud with you today. I've definitely learned a couple things, and I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk about it today. Carlos, before we go, you got any more announcements?
Yeah, sure, Eddie. We have one more interview this week, and it's actually right here down below. You can see it's on Thursday, and it'll be with Joseph Schneier, the CEO of Trusty.care, which is a health tech company. That's what we have for this week, Eddie, right here on Tech Backstage at 12 p.m. Pacific. So join us, everyone, and be here or be square.
Thanks, Carlos, and thanks again, Rich.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Bye, guys.